Hi, this is John from Revit for Interior Designers. In today's tutorial, we're going to build this kitchen island here. This is part of a commercial office interiors course available on our website. I'll include the link in the description below. But we'll start here. Now in our course, we're using a set of drawings. This is drawing number 5 on sheet A601. This is the rear elevation of the countertop. This is the flip side of the island, and you see a variety of storage below the countertop there. And this is a side view. And in particular here, you'll notice that the countertop rises between 3 feet and 3'6". And so this end panel here sort of jogs in elevation, and that's important to the modeling of this object. Now, you can either build this as a wall and use Edit Profile to draw the wall in that manner, or you can build it in a model in place. We're actually going to do both. So before I do that, I want to first draw some reference planes to view the edges of the countertop in a side elevation. If I go to View here, I'll launch a elevation view, and I'll point to this wall here, and I'll flip it over because there's nothing to point at currently. So I'll click on this on the circle, and I'll choose that box there to elevate the right side. I'm going to change the scale here and use a quarter to make the symbol a little bit smaller. I don't need this arrowhead here, so I'll grab the circle and uncheck that box to focus just toward the right. And I need some reference planes. So under Architecture, I'll use a reference plane here, and I'll draw along the edge of that counter. I'll draw along the edge of this, and I'll draw another one here along the edge of that. And that basically dictates where the countertops go from 36 inches to 3'6". This is the elevation I'm after. I clicked on it, and the elevation is a little larger than I need. I'm going to pull this toward the file. The view in front of me. I'm going to pull this here. And so my view is only restricted to the area within the box. And I'm looking at this surface and elevation. And what I want to do is draw the countertop in a side elevation. And to do that, I need to be able to draw from some place. Revit doesn't understand where I'm drawing from, so I will create a architectural reference plane here. And I'll draw a reference plane along this edge here. I will line it up with the edge of the countertop, and I'll click on the reference plane and give it a name. For example, Edge Island. And so that surface acts like a piece of glass, and I will draft on top of that surface the profile of the counter, and then I'll make it 10 feet long. So rather than drawing it in plan, I'll draw it from the side because I want this thing to be continuous, as opposed to drafting it in several different pieces. In this case here, I'd have to draw the top as one extrusion, the vertical piece as another extrusion, the top here, another extrusion. I've got 3 different 3D models when I can get it all done in one shot. So I will launch this elevation view here. I'm looking at the desk from the side. I'll hide this grid line here, right click on that object, hide the category. I will click on this floor level, right click on it, hide that category. And now grab this box, which is our crop box, and make it bigger. And then here, when I zoom in pretty close, I can see the CAD drawing exists in this side view. VG for visibility graphics. Go to imported categories, turn off all the CAD files. We don't want to see those. I want to also grab this crop box and make it align to the bottom of the finished floor. In this project, we built a slab for the floor and put a finished floor, 1/8 of an inch, on top of the slab. And so I'll move this to the top of the slab here and just expose the finished floor. And so these lines here tell us the edges of the countertop. I also noticed here when I hover here, I might accidentally highlight this object here, which is the room, because these rooms have tags now. VG. I'll go down to rooms and uncheck that box as well, just to keep things simple. And so in front of us is the area in which the countertop will be built. I'll also need to describe where the height of the countertop is. So I'll go back to Architecture tab and I'll do a reference plane here, and I will use the pick line command, and I'll pick a line that's 3'6". So if I go down here and choose the bottom of the floor, it'll draw a copy, a line above it, 3'6" above. So if I use pick 3'6" and I hover here, you see the line is showing up there above. So I will pick that there. That's the top of the countertop. So this is 3'6", and it'll drop down to 3 feet. So this area here is going to be taller than this area here. This area on the left will be where the cabinets will be. On the right will be where the chairs will be in elevation. And so this is all I need to do here. So what I'll do is I'll go into Architecture tab and Component, Model in Place, and I'll create a Casework object, hit OK. And I'll create an extrusion, which lets me draw a shape and give it a thickness. I could normally do this in plan, but here I'm doing an elevation. And if I'm doing an elevation, I tend to like to use reference planes that act like a wall of glass and draft on top of them, which I've done. But you need to name the reference plane. So when I use extrusion here, I might get this warning that lets me choose a reference plane to draw on top of. Column grid lines and floor levels act as reference planes, what they call working planes. And I'll go to name, because I named mine here at the bottom, edge of island. So if I hit OK, I'm drawing on the surface of the reference plane as if it's a wall of glass. And I will simply use the line command, and I'll draft, I'll sketch out what this thing looks like here. The reference planes are really light, but here I can just barely see them on my screen here. Click, 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 there. And this is the height of the countertop. And if you cannot see the reference planes in the background, you can also check the heights of these objects off the floor by clicking on them and grabbing this little blue dot here and pulling it to the top of the floor, and it'll confirm that that's 3'6". If I click on this one and grab that little dot and pull it to the floor, it's not letting me in this case. Or I can use this number here, 6. This is supposed to be 6 inches. It says 8. So if I click on this object and I choose this number and choose 6 inches, it'll make it 6 inches. This object is the countertop. It needs to have a thickness. So with the pick line command, I can pick something I've already drafted and copy it at a certain offset. This bar shows up here. I can type 1.5 inches, and then I can use the pick client to pick to select this object going down. This object here, go down here. Escape, and delete that one. I don't need that one. TR for trim the edges, and use this line command here to close the ends of this object. It has to be closed. It has to be perfectly drafted like this. So with that being said, this will create an extrusion, but how far? Over here in the properties, it says here that it starts at 1 foot and goes to 2 feet. It starts 1 foot away at the start from the reference plane, and it becomes another foot longer. I want to start at the reference plane, which is 0, which is the very edge of the counter. And for example, I'll type 10 feet. I'm not exactly sure how long this countertop is. So it's going to expand the length of this object in 3 dimensions. If I hit OK, I've got the object here. And let's finish the model to begin with. I'll leave this model in place interface by finishing the model. And I take a peek in 3D. Let's look down here. Let's type VG and turn off the walls. I've already turned off the ceilings. Well, here it is. There's a countertop, and that's 10 feet, drawn from the side, using the reference plane as a drafting surface, onto which I drew the profile and gave it a 10-foot length. So with that being said, I can go to Plan. I'll see it here, and I can actually grab this grip because it's a model in place object. I can stretch it to line up with the edge of the countertop. So now it's exactly the right length. Next task is to draw the end panels. And so here, I'll need a wall that's 4 inches thick based on our source material here. This shows that the end panels are 4 inches wide. So I'll create a wall that's 4 inches wide. I could do this model in place, or I could just build a wall, a generic wall, and assign materials to it later. So under architecture, I can draw a wall here, and I'll look for a 4-inch wall, generic typically. Here's generic. I made this earlier. I duplicated it. I took a generic wall, duplicated it, renamed it, called it 4 inches, and under structure, I actually made it 4 inches thick right there. Completely generic wall. So it doesn't have any materials assigned to it. I will draw this wall on the screen using the exterior face. So when I draw it here, the wall gets built to the left, hit spacebar, I'll flip it over. I'll go to the outside edge. There. That's the wall. So if I look at an elevation here, the wall's in front of me right there, but you see it's too tall. I didn't change the settings here. It goes from the first floor up to the second level. I'm going to change this to go unconnected, and I'll make it 42 inches tall, for example. I can do that from the top of the first floor and hit apply, and there, the wall unconnected 42 inches here. Hit apply. So there's the wall. But the wall is intersecting the countertop. And again, if I take a peek in 3D, and I unfortunately have to turn my walls back on to see it, you can see here, the wall is going through the work surface. So back here, I'll grab the wall and I'll use Edit Profile to change its shape to conform to the bottom of the countertop. So in that case, I'll do Edit Profile. I'll use Pick Line Command, and I'll pick the edges here and here, and the bottom of this. Escape, Trim, TR, and draw this without that line there. Delete on your keyboard. There's the wall that traces the edge of that countertop. 4 inches thick. Hit Apply. Ignore that message for a second. Go to 3D. You'll see it there. So there's the wall. Later we can apply materials to it, but it's at the end of that countertop. I need that wall to be flipped to the opposite side. So in Plan View, I'll simply select it. And I will use the mirror command, and I will grab the center of this countertop here. If I scrub along the edge here, I'll eventually find the little triangle that denotes center, and I'll pick a point straight up, and I'll flip it over that imaginary line I drafted. It's on both sides now. Okay, so what's next? Upon further review, this wall is supposed to be 4 inches back from the edge of the countertop. And you can see here it's about 3 foot, 1 foot 4.5 plus 2 foot 11. I believe you wind up with 4 inches on the end of that wall, basically. And so if I go back to Plan View here, there's the wall there, here, and I can make that wall shorter. However, because I use Edit Profile, it's a little trickier. So I'll look in an elevation. I'll grab this reference plane and I'll duplicate it back 4 inches. So now I have something to work towards. I can grab the wall and pull on it to reach that edge there, and keep the shape underneath the countertop. I no longer need that reference plane. I'll delete it. In fact, I don't need any of these reference planes, honestly. I'll just delete all these here, here, and here. And so next I need to build a panel below the seating area at the rear of the base cabinets. That detail will show up in the cross section here. And it says, look at drawing number 1 on A803. Here in drawing 1 on A803, I can see here, there's this end panel here. It looks like it's laminate. And there's a 4-inch setback from the edges of the countertop. And then I've got this wall here that hides the rear of the cabinets here. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that these are half-inch panels. Half inch plus a stud, which is 3.5, plus another half inch is 4.5, plus the quartz countertop here, which we're going to assume it's 1.5 inches, for example. So we've got 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6 inches from the edge of this counter to that wall there, assuming that all the math works out. So let's take a look at that in Revit. So back here in the site elevation, all I have to do is go to Architecture tab and do another reference plane from here down to the floor. Hold Shift to make the line perfectly straight. I'll take that reference plane and I will move it over toward the right by 6 inches. And there should be a wall aligned with that reference plane. Right there. Now, I could figure out what wall this is in here. I could build it as a wall. I could build it as a model in place object. In this example, let's do it as a model in place as another alternative. So in here, I can draw a shape here that fills that gap and extrude it the length of the countertop. So in this side view, I can go back to model in place. And actually, let's back up. Let's make it part of the existing model. Let's make it part of this countertop, part of the same object. So if I move it, the countertop and the edge and the wall beneath it will move as a whole. So I will grab this existing model in place object. I'll edit it. And instead of editing this shape here by selecting it and using edit extrusion, which I can do, I'm going to go to create and make a new extrusion. Extrusion there. Again, I need to determine what surface I'm going to do my drafting. And so I'll use my reference plane again called Edge Island. Hit OK. And I will draw it here. I'll use the rectangle here and I can simply just draft it right there and fill the gap. And then here it's 10 feet long, which I'll adjust in a second. I accept it. And then if you're done building this shape, which I am, I can finish the model. If you want to add more objects to this 3D model, I can go to create and continue building more objects. But if I hit OK, checkbox, and I go to 3D, you'll see that there's a surface right there, which is flush with the face of the countertop. And so let's crop this view in 3D so I can see it a little more clearly. Top view, go to properties here, turn on your section box. Hit apply. If you can't see it, use the light bulb and unhide it. But click on the section box and focus on that room exclusively. Just zero in on the area that we're working with here. So I'm just going to zoom really tight and just focus right there. So when I go to 3D, that's all I can see. I can click on one of the levels, right click and hide that category if I don't want to see that category here. And here's the object here. And so you can see this panel here is flush with the outside of this wall. And let's use consistent colors. See, it's running into that wall. I can click on it and pull it back because it's a model in place. I can do that. And I want this face aligned with the back of that wall. So I type AL for align, or modify align is right there. Highlight the wall where I'm heading, which is this wall here. Tab if you can't find it. Tab, click. And then here, pick. The command is still active, so choose the wall surface first. Make sure it highlights the right surface. I don't want the front, I want the side. If you're having trouble, move your mouse somewhere else. That's what I want right there. Click, what goes to that surface? This surface here. Click, they're nicely lined up now. So we're good here. We're going to leave this section box turned on. Later, I'll probably want to turn it off because I don't want it on at all times. So we'll leave it on for the time being. So there's our island with a setback here for chairs, a couple end walls. Next, we'll collect some furniture to place beneath the countertop. And here is a listing of furniture for that area. Right here. You can see here there's a 1'11" single door cabinet, 3 drawers, a dishwasher. There's a sink here, with 42-inch cabinet, base cabinet, couple single door cabinets here, and there's a cabinet there. So we will locate most of these in the Autodesk folder downloaded from the cloud. And so I'll find those elements and import them into our project. And so here what I've done is I've located several families in the Revit Autodesk folder and installed it on my computer. This one here is the base cabinet single door family. This one here is simply a dishwasher. This one here is the base cabinet double door family. This one here is the base cabinet single door drawer family. There's two of them side by side. And this one here is the base cabinet double door family. Those were all inserted into this project from Insert, Load Autodesk Family, and simply do a search here for base cabinets. You can also find it here under Casework, base cabinets, and find them in this menu. You simply find the object you need, hit load, and it copies it into your project. Otherwise, if you have your own families downloaded off the internet, you use load family, and you select the Revit file, RFA file, Revit family file that you downloaded, and this button will install it into this project. So I've already done that work. I also noticed here that these have very specific dimensions: 1'11", 1'11", 3'6", 1'6". Some of the families might not have those types available in their type selector. Meaning, if I click on this object here and I look in this type selector here for that size, it might not have the size I'm after. In which case, you have to take one that it does exist, edit type, duplicate it, and change either the width, the height, or the depth to get the required size that you're after for this project. I've already done that work. As an example here, let's see which one of these are custom. This one here, I normally put, my initials are on this one here. I made a custom 42-inch base cabinet with double doors. This was the options available here. I duplicated this one here, and I must have modified something in this menu here. The width is 3'6", the height is 2'10.5", the depth is 2 feet. Maybe one of those was customized, and I created the object there. Feel free to manipulate these sizes as you need to for your design. So they're all here, and cabinets show up as these dashed lines in plan. And I basically put them next to each other, use the align command, and line them up nicely outside the area they're going to be placed. There's the dishwasher, which I did duplicate here. I made a duplicate of the standard size it had, 24, and I duplicated and changed it to a 1'11" wide dishwasher. It's a little custom for this project. So given that I already loaded these families into my project, these all came standard out of the Revit Autodesk folder, right there, the Autodesk family folder. I can then align them underneath the countertop here. Just basically choose the countertop edge for an alignment and start picking them off one at a time and placing them beneath the countertop. There, we're done. If I return to 3D view, I can take a peek, and you can see here I've lined up all the cabinets side by side. Some of these have different colors, but the properties control the colors. For example, this one here, edit type, might have a parameter for colors. All these options that are available here are called parameters. This one has no option for the cabinet material or the drawer material. It says it's by default. Whereas this one here might have different options. This one here says the finish has not been chosen. At the bottom here, it doesn't exist here. And by the way, another place to look is here in this menu. It's not here in this instance properties. So this under finishes, I can basically choose to by category and see if it makes it white like the others. It does not. You can choose that object, go here, and choose a different finish here for that item. Actually, I'm noticing in this family here that there is no parameter for materials. There's only finishes here. Therefore, I have to adjust the family itself to have it display an option for materials, which is an advanced lesson. So I'll maybe save that for a separate video. But you've got the cabinets below the countertop here. And when I go to plan view here, we're going to want to put this sink in here. Now, I have downloaded a few families for the sink and for the faucet. And these are custom families that I download off the internet. Feel free to use your own. If I go Insert and Load Family, these are available to my students in my course. I'm going to find the folder that has the families I downloaded. So, for example, here I've got all the folders that are included in my course. Faucet is something I downloaded off the internet, and so is sink. They might also be available in the Autodesk family folder as well. But if I go to faucet here and I find this family RFA file, I hit open, and it'll copy it into my project. It transformed it from 2017 to 2025 in this example. I'll go back to load family here. I'll find my custom family. I'll go up the folder. I'll go to the sink. And this is my custom sink I found from Kohler. And I'll open it. And that's been copied into my project. Therefore, later when I return to architecture and I place a component, because these are prefab 3D models, families that you can use in your project, as opposed to model in place where you're building them on the fly individually. Here they've already been built. I can go here and I can do a search for Kohler, K-O-H, and here I've got a polished chrome faucet, and I'll put that on top of the work surface. So it shows up here. Click. Escape. Let's go back here. Model in place. I'm sorry, not model in place. We're going to go back. We're going to do place a component. And in this case, we're going to look for a sink. There's a couple sinks. This one here is called Sink Kitchen Double. This comes from Revit. I want this one here called Kohler Stainless Steel. And I'm going to place it on top of the countertop. You see, it doesn't want to get placed on the floor, but I can place it on top of this counter. Click. Okay. Now, it has additional information, which is not displayed currently because my level of detail is showing coarse, which is the lowest level of detail displayed on the screen. To increase that level and to see if there's anything hidden from view, more information available for these objects, I use fine. And you'll notice here, the faucet looks different. There's some more information added to this counter, this sink. And so I'm going to grab a reference plane and drag a line there. I'm going to rotate this object here with the rotate command. I will simply choose a point and choose 180 degrees. And then I can move it into position. I can type AL for a line, go to the green line, choose the center of the object. And then here, I can simply use my keyboard, shift keyboard, arrow keys up and down, or use it without the shift. It's got a shorter range when it jumps. So here I can place it right there as an example. I can do the same thing here. Align to the reference plane, to the center of that object, and then do some alignments here. This sink is running into the faucet there, so I'll click on it, use the up arrow on my keyboard, and simply move it up. Or I can use the align and make it line up with that edge right there. Their sink seems to be smaller than ours, but I don't have their family. So there's a sink. What I'll let you know here is that sink comes with an opening. It cut opening out of the countertop automatically. That is not common. And by the way, let me type VG and turn off my ceilings here. That's not common. That's not normal. That family has a special ability to cut holes out of surfaces above them. If you find a family that you want to install in a countertop, of a given sink, and it does not come with an opening or a hole, you'll need to cut an opening out of the countertop manually. This is the model in place object. And so normally, if I go to floor plan, if you had, as an example, a model in place object here, model in place, and let's say I did another piece of casework as an example, and I drew an extrusion on the floor this time, and I drew a shape inside of the shape, the outer shape. This is the perimeter. This is drawn inside the perimeter. This is going to be 10 feet tall. I'm going to change that to 1 foot as an example. Hit apply and finish the model. If I looked at that object in 3D, there you'll have an opening. And so you would normally trace around the perimeter of the sink. However, this was not drawn in plan. This extrusion was drawn from the side view, lengthwise, not vertically from the bottom up. This is going to be a problem. So I'll give you a technique to, I'm going to delete on my keyboard. I'll give you a technique to cut a hole out of the countertop in case you have a different sink. I will go to the plan view. And let's say I'll go inside this model in place. I'll select it and edit it. So I'm inside the model in place where there's a countertop and there's a vertical wall there we built earlier. And let's say I want to draw an opening for a sink. There's a sink there. I trace it. But I want to do that using create, and I want to use extrusion. Or you can directly use void extrusion. I get to the same results either way. This one is going to be a model that's going to subtract out an opening from wherever it intersects. And this will be a new 3D model, but in the end, they'll both be the same. If I draw this box here, for example, and I made it really tall, let's make it 5 feet tall, taller than the countertop. Make sure it goes through the countertop and accept it. I'm not leaving the model in place yet. I'm not going to finish the model yet, but I'm going to go to 3D. Here it goes through the countertop. Okay, fine. Normally this would be invisible, sort of semi-transparent when it's set up to be a void. A void wants to carve itself out of a 3D model. If it's not a void, you can take this and turn it into a void. And when I click on this over on properties, under here's a solid void, it's a solid now. I can make it into a void here. So it'll act like I went to the void object from the beginning. Just another method of doing the same work. So here's the void, here's the countertop. If I try to accept this, it's going to give me an error message. The void is intersecting, but it has not been cut. So Revit wants to know what object is being cut and what's doing the cutting. So you go here to cut, and you choose the work surface that's being cut, and you choose the box that's doing the cutting. And it'll figure out where they intersect and cut a hole out. And there's your new sink opening for your sink model. My sink family came with an opening automatically, which is great because it saves me some work. So that's how you do it. You accept the model, and then you've got a new opening here. I'm going to cancel that because I don't want that in my project because my sink already came with an opening here. There. Okay. Next, we're going to add some chairs. So I'll go to the floor plan view, and I'll find some chairs to add here. Now here, I've loaded a separate Revit file, which I collected over time, that's available to the students in my course. You can find your own chairs online and load it into your project, but this is a Revit file, not a family file. And for those students in my course, they can come into here and they can notice here there's a couple of chairs here for the kitchen. So let's say I want to use this chair here. So I select it and do Control-C on your keyboard, or use the copy command here at the top of the screen. Then you go to the design, the first floor plan here, and then you paste, and then paste it from clipboard. And there's, I hit OK, and there's the object from the other file, and you place it on the screen. This is not a family. This was a another Revit project that was open at the same time as this project, and I copy and paste it. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And I pasted it into this project. I know this chair is flipped over backwards. I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees. And I've got that chair in position. And I want that chair copied 6 times. I click on the one chair and I use the array command. I can do with this command, I can click on array and I can choose the second location of the chair. So here I'll grab its center and I'll drag it over to the right slightly and I'll pick a distance. Let's say, what have you, 3 feet, for example. And here it lets me highlight this number and choose the total number of chairs that will be this distance apart, 6, enter. And there I've gone too far. But because this is an array, I can click on any one of these chairs, for example, this one here, and I can pull it toward the others, and consequently, they will all change their spacing as a group. There. If I need to move them, I will grab the entire bunch and move them left and right, up and down with my keyboard here or my mouse, and they maintain this grouped entity here that creates an array. If I want to move any of these chairs, delete any of these chairs, and change the design, I'd have to select them all and choose ungroup, and the group goes away. Then I can delete any of these chairs individually and make a change. Otherwise, maintain your array. Finally, we're going to return to 3D, and I'm just going to make a note here that the bottom of these walls have a base. And the base exists here around the bottom of that wall there. And they call that out here as an integrated toe kick. Although it's not a toe kick necessarily because it doesn't set back. But I believe they want to wrap this wall with a base of some sort. And we need to build that into our project. So you've got a wall here. It needs a base. And in this case, we can either, there's several different ways of doing this. You can model it in 3D as a razor thin object that traces this wall on all sides and is the appropriate height of a base. You can do split face command and carve out an area at the bottom of this wall. On all sides, though, that can be painted with a different material to create the base. Or you can make this wall 4 inches shorter and put a wall beneath it, 4 inches tall. And that wall can be assigned the material that you're after, the base material, vinyl or rubber or whatever the case may be. And so there's different ways to doing that work. If I go back to plan view here, perhaps I'll show you the one thing you can do. You cannot do this if this wall was built with model in place. It has to be a legit wall, which it is. It's a wall, which edit profiles available for the wall. Model in place will not work. If it's a wall, you can go here to modify, and right there is a command called split face. You can click on the wall, and then you can draw a line that represents the border of the base. For example, if I draw a line from here to here, and then click on it. Actually, I was expecting it to give me a height, and it's not giving me a height. So what I'll do is I will, I'll move it, I'll align it with the floor, and I'll select it again and move it straight up. Let's call it 3 inches. And I cannot trace on top of the existing orange lines, but I can draw an independent line that touches them. But that line right there allows me to hit OK. And that basically splits the wall into 2 separate areas. And under Modify, the Paint command, I can come under Paint command and choose a different material for the base. I'm not sure what they have here. They've got like this plastic, black plastic here. I can choose that and put on top of that wall, my mouse on top of that wall, and click, and that gets painted the material that you're after, the base. You do have to trace these lines on all 4 sides. You need to cut a line here, and then flip the wall over and cut a line across there so the base wraps around the wall. And then once you do that, I would delete the other one here and copy this to the other side if you use the wall command to build that wall. Another quick tip, just to show you how quickly this can go. I can delete that edge there. I can choose this wall here, John's generic 4-inch wall. I can duplicate it and call it John's generic 4-inch base. And what I can do there is under the structure right here, I can choose that base material we looked at earlier, vinyl. And I can find it here on the list. Here's Plastic Brady Corporation Black. In my project, I have this black material. Hit OK. And therefore, that wall, when created in the design, will have a black material assigned to it. So what I'll do then, and here it is. There's an example. I'll make it return to the normal wall here. There's a normal wall here. So in here, I will simply grab this wall, edit the profile, grab the bottom, and move the move command and point straight up 4 inches. Remove the constraints. Hit OK. And then you'll see here that the wall is now 4 inches shorter. Then I will make another wall, except the next wall I'll build here in plan view is the one with the base. And I'll draw it here next to it. I'll maybe use a line command to make sure they're lined up nicely. They're the same length. I'll draw it there next to it. I'll make sure here it's 4 inches tall. So it goes from the unconnected 4 inches tall. So that's fine. And now I will line this up. I'll line the face of this with the face of that. Let's do this in black and white so I can see what I'm doing. Align AL. Go to here, this surface here, with this surface here. And it pushes it right under that wall. So now, in shaded view, I can see that there's a base below that wall. I will then, because I don't want to do this work twice, I will delete that wall over there. I'll grab this wall and its base with the control key on my keyboard. I want to make sure they're both selected together, otherwise I got to do this work twice. Tab if you have to find it. Let me grab the base first and then hold control and grab the second wall. They're both selected. And in plan view, while they're selected, use the mirror command and find the center of this countertop, which is actually the center of the sink, and draw a line straight up. It copies it to the other side. And now I have the walls on both sides. We're done.